time when the galaxy had been calm for so long that most people forgot what tension even felt like. The peace had lasted 3,000 years, so long that it was older than every nation, every city, every culture anyone knew. People were born, lived full lives, and passed away without ever seeing a single argument between worlds. Children in schools learned about old conflicts the same way they learned about ancient myth, something that happened once, far away, and probably would never happen again. It was a strange kind of comfort, a feeling that the galaxy had permanently entered a gentle rhythm. Humanity played a huge part in that. Over the centuries, humans had earned a reputation for being calm and friendly. They built strong relationships with dozens of alien species, attended peaceful councils, shared technology, and made everyone feel included. Whenever a problem occurred between two planets, it was usually humans who stepped in first, offering patient conversations and practical solutions. They were known as the quiet mediators of the galaxy, but not everyone trusted that quietness. A few alien leaders, especially the older ones who remembered the stories of humanity's ancient strength, often wondered how a species famous for being unpredictable had managed to stay so peaceful. They looked at Earth and saw no large armies parading around, no aggressive broadcasts, no challenges or warnings. Instead, humans were busy with research, building science stations, and quietly working on long-term projects that no one really bothered asking about. On Earth, people lived simple and happy lives. Cities were vibrant, filled with parks, markets, and calm streets. The sky had motionless rings of orbiting stations that people barely noticed anymore. They had always been there, so familiar that no one thought much about them. And because humanity showed no signs of conflict, the rest of the galaxy relaxed too. Still, rumors had a way of traveling. Some aliens whispered, "How can they stay peaceful for so long? What are they hiding?" Others dismissed it as paranoia, saying humans simply matured as a species. But deep down, a few leaders couldn't shake the feeling that something about humans just didn't add up. People on Earth remained unaware of most of these doubts. They were too busy with everyday life, families, work, travel, hobbies, and exploration. They liked to push boundaries in science and discovery. Over time, humans built research stations near the edge of known space. These stations were quiet, distant, and often ignored by outsiders. From afar they looked harmless, just glowing rings or small dots against the dark sky. But their placement always raised curiosity. Why build observatories so far away? What exactly were humans watching? Even the Galactic Council began discussing it. Nothing aggressive, just careful questions. Why so many listening posts? Why do their stations have such strong power signatures? Humanity always answered with the same calm tone. We like to study the universe. There is always more to learn. And they weren't lying. Humanity truly did love learning. But learning wasn't all they were doing. The truth was, humans had not spent 3,000 years relaxing. They had spent 3,000 years preparing. No one else knew it because humans never bragged or showed off. They never talked about defenses or hidden technology. They never showed giant fleets or intimidating weapons. Instead, they focused on friendly conversations and peaceful cooperation, not because they were weak, but because they understood something everyone else forgot over time, that peace is safest when you stay ready. Across the galaxy, some civilizations advanced quickly while others slowed. Some focused on art, others on technology, and a few on expanding their territories. Humanity watched all of it. They were patient observers, quietly studying every new invention, every strategy, every major decision any species made. They were not spying, just learning, the way a careful student watches the world. Whenever an alien species created something impressive, humans studied its design. Whenever someone discovered a new scientific principle, humans researched how it could be applied for protection. They didn't copy or steal anything. They developed their own versions quietly, improving them over centuries. And because no one expected humans to be doing anything special, almost no one kept an eye on them. Life on human colonies looked peaceful, and it truly was. People enjoyed calm routines, festivals, deep conversations, and cultural exchanges. But behind that, engineers and scientists worked on long-term projects with careful discipline. Most of their work never left the labs or research centers. Only a small number of people knew the real scale of what humanity was building across generations. Those who did know never talked about it. Humanity learned, long ago, that showing strength invites trouble. Staying calm, quiet, and humble kept the galaxy peaceful. So they chose that path smiles over threats, cooperation over pride, but not everyone saw it that way. Some alien factions believed humanity's calmness was a mask. They said humans were too peaceful, too patient, too quiet. They believed something hidden existed, something that could shift the balance of the galaxy if revealed. There were moments when alien diplomats tried to test humanity by asking direct questions. What are those stations really for? Why so many hidden outposts? Humans always answered with sincere, simple explanations. Nothing sounded dangerous. Nothing sounded dishonest. And maybe that was why the suspicion never fully went away. Some aliens believed that if humans wanted to hide something, they would hide it perfectly. Meanwhile, ordinary people back on Earth had no idea they were being questioned. They lived their lives easily, laughing with neighbors, exploring nature, and traveling to nearby planets for vacations. To them, the universe felt safe and welcoming. They trusted their leaders and believed in peace. They didn't know that some species were secretly studying humanity with nervous eyes. What made the situation even more interesting was the way humans behaved age after age. They didn't hurry. They didn't react emotionally. They didn't compete for power. They simply kept moving forward in small, steady steps. Their ships looked simple. Their stations looked ordinary. Their technologies looked modest. Nothing ever drew too much attention. But if someone had paid very close attention, they might have noticed something unusual. Humanity's projects were always built with layers of intention. A station labeled as research could easily transform into something else if needed. The clusters of observatories around Earth were placed in extremely strategic locations. The power grids supporting the stations were far stronger than what basic research required. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't threatening. But it was there. Even with all this quiet preparation, humans never stopped being kind. They welcomed alien visitors, hosted festivals, shared food, music, and stories. They loved cultural exchange programs. They encouraged students from distant worlds to come to Earth and learn. People felt safe there, and no one traveling to the human homeworld ever sensed any danger. The galaxy slowly began to divide into two opinions. Some believed humans were just a peaceful, disciplined species who grew wiser with time. Others believed humans were preparing for something no one else knew about. Some even said humanity was waiting for a moment only they could foresee. But Earth stayed silent about all of it. They never corrected anyone. They never defended themselves. They simply continued their work, their research, their gentle presence among the stars. What the galaxy didn't know was that human patience was not weakness. It was a plan that took thousands of years to shape. Humanity had seen enough history to understand that unexpected events always come sooner or later. And if that day ever arrived, humans did not want to be caught unprepared. As the years stretched on, and new generations took their parents' places, the galaxy grew more comfortable with peace. But a few civilizations kept an eye on humanity anyway, whispering quietly, wondering if the smiles from Earth were as simple as they looked. Eventually, the galaxy would find out. But for now, humanity simply continued what they had always done, living calmly, learning quietly, and carrying a secret level of readiness that almost no one noticed. And in that silence, something was already beginning to shift, even though no one recognized it yet. A quiet season, a kind of calm where nothing big seems to happen, yet something unusual hangs in the air. People didn't sense it at first. Humanity was going on with normal routines, morning schedules, work tasks, study sessions, travel between colonies, and conversations in cafes and public parks. Life felt steady and predictable, like the universe had no intention of surprising anyone. But small things were changing far away, in places most humans never visited. It started with small disagreements between a few alien representatives. Normally, such arguments were settled within minutes. But this time, the conversations didn't end easily. Certain voices began speaking with more sharpness than usual. Their tone wasn't angry, just suspicious. They questioned why humans always acted so calm, why they avoided taking strong positions, and why they built so many research stations instead of focusing on expansion like others. Most people on Earth didn't hear about these complaints. They rarely paid attention to political discussions happening on distant planets. But those who worked in interstellar offices noticed the shift. Messages from some alien factions grew colder. Requests for meetings became more formal. There were more questions than answers. A few alien leaders even suggested that humanity's calmness was only a way to hide something bigger. They asked, how can they stay peaceful for so long? What are they preparing for? It wasn't hostility, just suspicion, like someone trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. Meanwhile, humanity continued behaving the same way. They attended every meeting with patience. They agreed to peaceful discussions. They shared harmless scientific discoveries. Their behavior didn't change at all. No loud statements, no dramatic reactions, no attempts to dominate. If a disagreement arose, humans simply listened, offered reasonable explanations, and ended the conversation politely to outsiders. This polite behavior looked almost too perfect. Over time, a small alien faction started comparing notes. They observed human patterns from the past 1,000 years, searching for any sign of hidden motives. They studied human construction patterns, ship movements, and trade routes. The deeper they looked, the more confused they became. Everything looked normal on the surface, yet something about the consistency bothered them. They said to each other, no species remains this patient for so long. Across the galaxy, new rumors formed. Some alien diplomats whispered that humans were hiding advanced technology. Others suggested humans were secretly meeting with distant civilizations. Those rumors weren't true, but they traveled fast, reaching places where even the humans working in political offices didn't know their names. But Earth didn't react to any of it. Humanity had learned long ago that reacting too quickly made things worse. So they let the rumors fade on their own. And usually, that strategy worked. But this time, it didn't. The whispers didn't fade. They grew into louder discussions. On one planet, a group of alien leaders met privately and announced that humanity was acting too perfect. On another world, a council member said humans should be monitored more closely. None of these discussions turned into direct accusations. They were just cautious opinions, expressed behind closed doors. Yet one by one, these small meetings added tension to the galaxy's quiet atmosphere. Eventually, certain alien factions began taking small steps toward defensive behavior. Nothing dramatic, just changes that only experts would notice. Patrol ships started flying closer to human borders. Alien fleets adjusted their routes. Trade ships avoided certain paths. And monitoring stations doubled their focus on human movements. Back on Earth, these changes were detected by analysts working in silent offices. They studied movement patterns and noticed small but steady shifts. When they presented the information to Earth's leaders, no one panicked. Humanity had already seen signs like this centuries ago and knew how to stay patient. Instead of reacting, humans continued their normal work. They sent friendly messages to neighboring planets. They offered technical assistance. They opened new cultural exchange centers. Their calm behavior confused the alien factions even more. It was as if humanity either didn't recognize the tension or simply refused to be bothered by it. What aliens did not realize was that staying calm was humanity's way of watching carefully. Humans had learned that a quiet mind could see more clearly than a fearful one. So they observed the galaxy with steady eyes, waiting to see what these small shifts would lead to. Meanwhile, on alien worlds, leaders tried to understand why their attempts to pressure humans weren't working. They expected humans to become nervous or defensive. They expected Earth to hold emergency meetings or send warnings. But humanity didn't move even an inch. This silence frustrated the suspicious factions. They believed humans were playing some sort of long game, waiting to reveal something powerful at the right moment. There was one meeting that stood out from the rest. A group of alien representatives questioned the human ambassador directly. They asked why humans built so many deep space observatories. They asked why certain human stations had higher energy readings than expected. They even asked why humanity always insisted on being peaceful. The ambassador answered with a steady voice, saying, "We study the universe because we are curious. We build stations because learning never stops. We choose peace because conflict wastes time and life." The explanation was simple, honest, and calm. Too calm in the minds of some listeners. They left the meeting with more questions than answers. As the months passed, tension grew not loudly, but quietly, like a rising tide that no one could see until it touched their feet. The suspicious alien faction began to gather more supporters. They believed that humanity was a risk, even if humans never showed any aggression. Their logic was strange but powerful. No species can stay peaceful forever. The question is, when will they stop pretending? This idea spread slowly, and once it reached certain influential leaders, they started working on plans. They didn't announce anything. They didn't make threats. They simply began strengthening their fleets and sending coded instructions to their officers not far from all this. Life on human colonies remained normal. People on Earth woke up every morning with no idea that tensions were rising. Markets opened. Students rushed to classes. Workers commuted through clean streets. Families enjoyed quiet dinners. No one imagined strange suspicions forming light years away. One interesting thing about humans was that they were good at sensing subtle changes in mood. Even though people didn't know what was happening, a few felt something uneasy in the atmosphere, like a distant storm that hadn't formed yet, but could be felt in the air. It wasn't fear, just a soft awareness that something big might be approaching. Human intelligence centers quietly tracked alien movements. They saw the changes in patrol routes and the buildup of fleets. They didn't sound alarms. They didn't prepare any public warnings. They simply updated their records and shared the information with the right people. A small circle of human strategists studied the patterns carefully, without interrupting their daily calm. Humans had a strange talent for acting normal, even in uncertain times. They believed that unnecessary panic created mistakes. So while alien factions grew restless, Earth remained steady, like a tree that doesn't sway even in strong wind. But the galaxy was slowly heading toward a turning point. One day, a human analyst noticed that 3 alien fleets had changed their positions almost at the same time. That alone wasn't alarming. But the direction they shifted toward was unusual, closer to human territory, closer to the borders they usually ignored. The analyst reported the information to senior officials, who read it carefully and exchanged thoughtful glances. No one raised their voice. No one made dramatic predictions. They simply noted that the pattern was becoming more clear. Something was coming. Humanity didn't respond aggressively. They didn't send ships or threats. They just increased their observation quietly and continued their daily routines as if nothing had changed. But behind the calm surface, humanity's long-prepared awareness sharpened. They had spent centuries learning to read silent warnings. And from the small signals appearing across the galaxy, humans could tell that someone, somewhere, had finally decided to challenge the peace. Little did the galaxy know, challenging humanity was never a simple decision, and the suspicious factions were about to find out why. On a day that started like any other, people on Earth woke up to quiet skies and warm sunlight spreading across the cities. Children hurried to catch morning transport. Workers filled the cafes for a quick drink before starting their day, and students walked into busy halls with books in their hands. Everything looked normal, and no one expected anything unusual to happen. But far away from Earth, in the deep dark of space, several alien fleets were already gathering. Communications officers monitored the channels closely, and their screens filled with coded signals. These fleets belonged to the same factions that doubted humanity's calmness. For months, they had been meeting behind closed doors, planning something they believed was necessary to protect the galaxy. Now, they felt ready to make their move. The moment came without warning. On a bright afternoon, while people on Earth were going through their regular schedules, the galactic broadcast system suddenly activated. Every communication screen, every public display, every interplanetary network flashed the same message. People froze when they saw the emblem on the screen, the symbol of the coalition of alien species that had grown suspicious of humanity. The message did not arrive with anger. It arrived with cold certainty. A representative appeared, speaking in a steady, formal tone. He announced that the 3,000-year peace treaty that bound all major civilizations together had officially ended. The coalition declared they no longer trusted humanity and believed humans were hiding deeper intentions behind their calm behavior. The final words of the announcement echoed across every world. From this moment onward, we choose conflict. The galaxy went silent. Billions of individuals across hundreds of planets stared at their screens, unsure what to say or do. Some gasped. Some looked around nervously. Others simply froze in disbelief. Peace had been part of life for so long that most people couldn't imagine living without it. But the most surprising reaction came from Earth.Human. Representatives watched the broadcast from a meeting chamber. When the message ended, the room remained quiet for a few seconds. Then, several of them exchanged calm glances. Some leaned back in their chairs. A few even showed a faint smile, not a mocking smile, not an angry one, just a small, knowing expression, as if something they had expected for a long time had finally arrived. Outside that chamber, news spread across human settlements. Reporters rushed to gather statements. People gathered in public areas, waiting to hear what their leaders would say. The tension in the air was heavy, but strangely, many humans didn't panic. They were surprised, yes, but not frightened. They looked at each other with a quiet confidence, like a shared understanding that everything would be okay. A group of reporters finally reached the Human Council and asked for a response. Everyone expected Earth to react with concern or frustration. Everyone expected humans to demand peace talks or to express shock at the sudden declaration. Instead, the representatives spoke with calm, steady voices. They simply said, "We remain committed to stability. We are not afraid. We will respond responsibly." But it was the small smirk, gentle and quiet, that stood out. That expression spread through human colonies faster than the news itself. People saw their leaders remain calm and steady, and it made them feel the same way. Instead of fear, they felt a strange sense of readiness. It was as if humanity had been expecting this moment all along. On alien worlds, this human reaction confused almost everyone. The coalition leaders who made the declaration had been prepared for anger or negotiation. They had prepared for panic. They had prepared for emotional speeches or rushed, defensive moves. They had not prepared for a smile. The coalition's advisors replayed footage of the human reaction again and again. They analyzed every expression, every movement, every tiny detail. The more they studied it, the more unsettled they became. This was not the reaction of a species caught unprepared. This was the reaction of a species that had quietly accepted the moment long before it happened. Meanwhile, on Earth, life continued almost normally. People still went to work. Shops remained open. Transportation stayed on schedule. Children still played in parks. Though everyone felt the tension, there was no chaos. No rush to hide. No sudden fear. Humanity behaved the way they always did, calm, steady, practical. But beneath that calm was something deeper. For centuries, humanity had invested in developing quiet systems of security, understanding the galaxy better than anyone realized. And even though humans never bragged about it, their experience in handling crisis situations ran deep. They had learned from ancient history, from old mistakes, from chaotic periods that happened long before peace existed. They had studied how civilizations around them functioned, how arguments began, and how small misunderstandings could escalate. This knowledge made them steady now. They didn't see the coalition's declaration as a sudden danger. They saw it as a step they had prepared for. Over generations at human border stations, officers received updates about movements on the other side. Alien fleets were slowly taking new positions, shifting closer to human territory. None of them crossed the border yet, but their intent became clearer with every passing hour. The officers monitoring these movements stayed calm. They reported the changes with simple voices, updating their superiors in the usual way. There was no rush, no fear. The quiet readiness was visible in every step they took. Young officer on one of the outer stations watched several ships appear on her screen. She carefully tracked their routes and reported to her team leader. The leader simply nodded and said, "Keep observing." Nothing unusual for now. Their attitude was so calm that anyone watching them would assume nothing important was happening. Deep inside Earth's strategic centers, specialists reviewed centuries-old plans. These weren't emergency plans filled with dramatic actions. They were gentle, intelligent strategies designed to avoid chaos. Every document had been created with the idea that peace was precious. But peace must be protected. The reason humanity stayed calm wasn't arrogance. It wasn't overconfidence. It was the simple understanding that fear never helped anyone. Human leaders believed that stable minds made better choices than panicked ones. But the alien coalition misunderstood that calmness. They believed humans were hiding something powerful. They believed the smirk on human faces meant humanity had secretly built some incredible weapon or hidden fleet. In reality, the smirk came from an entirely human place, a mix of patience, preparation, and the quiet confidence that they could handle whatever came next. The coalition held an emergency meeting after seeing humanity's reaction. Some leaders felt unsettled. Some believed they had made a mistake. But the strongest voices insisted that the humans must be bluffing, pretending to be calm so they wouldn't look weak. This misunderstanding gave the coalition a sense of urgency, pushing them deeper into their belief that humanity needed to be challenged. While this political tension grew, everyday life on Earth continued with an unusual sense of unity. People talked to each other more. Families gathered in living rooms, discussing the news. Neighbors checked on each other. Strangers offered reassurance. Humanity had always been good at adapting, and now that strength showed again, out in small community halls. People expressed concern, but there was always someone saying, We'll handle it. We always do." That steady confidence spread through the population like a warm wave. Even those who feared the unknown found comfort in the calmness around them. There was something special about humanity's reaction. It didn't feel artificial. It didn't feel planned. It felt natural, like a truth built into their history. They were not afraid because they knew fear wouldn't help. They were not angry because anger would only make things worse. And they didn't rush toward conflict because deep down, they still hoped peace could be saved. But they were ready for whatever came next. The galaxy watched all of this with confusion. Some civilizations wondered if the Coalition's declaration had been unnecessary. Others wondered if they should prepare their own defenses. A few even reached out quietly to humans, asking if they needed support. Humanity responded with gentle reassurance, saying everything was under control. Still, the tension kept growing. The Coalition's fleets continued to move. Human stations adjusted their sensors. Messages traveled silently between Earth and its distant colonies. It felt like the universe was holding its breath, waiting for the next moment. And although no one knew it yet, that next moment would reveal something the galaxy had overlooked for centuries. Humanity didn't stay peaceful because they were weak. They stayed peaceful because they had mastered patience. And the galaxy was about to understand that patience was stronger than anyone ever imagined. The quiet control rooms on Earth, where rows of human specialists worked calmly, monitoring signals from across the galaxy. Every station, every observatory, every sensor was alive with information. Yet the humans inside moved with steady patience. Outside, life on Earth continued almost normally. Children played in parks, markets opened, and people went about their routines, seemingly unaware that fleets from distant civilizations had begun shifting toward human territory. But the humans who were aware were not surprised. They had been waiting, not with fear, not with anger, but with a calm readiness that came from centuries of preparation. Humanity had spent generations learning, observing, and quietly building systems that could respond to almost anything. And now, the moment that had been expected for so long had arrived. Deep in space, alien fleets approached the borders of human-controlled systems. Observers in the Coalition watched carefully, confident they would find signs of panic or disarray. They expected humans to scramble or react nervously, perhaps even offer to negotiate under pressure. They were certain that after 3,000 years of peace, humanity could not possibly be ready for sudden conflict. They were wrong. Human stations activated quietly. Signals flashed to distant colonies. Ships that had once been labeled as research vessels or transport craft revealed secondary capabilities, enhanced shields, rapid communication systems, and tactical positioning that had been hidden for decades. Nothing looked aggressive at first glance. No weapons fired, no alarm screamed. But anyone who paid close attention could see the careful orchestration, the silent readiness that had been built over centuries. The Coalition fleets grew uneasy. Their initial confidence began to waver. When they tried to probe human defenses, they discovered layers of systems they hadn't anticipated. Their scouts found stations that were reinforced, listening posts that could detect movements far beyond normal range, and fleets that were positioned strategically, ready to respond in moments. The quiet calm of humans was not ignorance or weakness, it was preparation. On Earth, leaders monitored the situation with the same steady calm they had always maintained. They knew the Coalition did not fully understand humanity's approach. They knew the galaxy believed humans were peaceful because they were afraid or limited in strength. In reality, humans had chosen peace because they had mastered patience and restraint. That quiet strength gave them the advantage. Every decision humanity made at this moment reflected careful strategy. Supplies had been positioned across colonies. Communication channels were optimized to avoid interference. Every research station could double as a monitoring hub. Every fleet was ready to move quickly if needed. Humans didn't need to strike first. They only needed to show readiness. That was enough to unsettle even the most confident alien leaders. The coalition tried to pressure humans further. They sent messages demanding explanations, suggesting that humanity reveal their capabilities or face the consequences. Each message was polite, formal, and direct, but it carried an undercurrent of threat. To the aliens, it was a test. To humanity, it was information. Human representatives read the messages calmly, discussed them quietly among themselves, and sent simple replies. They did not show anger. They did not escalate the situation. Instead, they made it clear that humans valued stability, that their systems were prepared to respond if necessary, and that they preferred peaceful solutions. The words themselves were simple, but they carried a subtle message. Humans were ready. As the alien fleets moved closer, minor incidents began to occur. Scouts attempting to test human defenses were met with quiet resistance, not attacks, but obstacles carefully calculated to test reactions. Navigation paths became more complicated. Communications were subtly rerouted. Sensors provided false readings in some areas, creating the appearance of normality. While allowing humans to track movements in detail, the coalition began to realize that the humans were not reacting randomly. Every action, every adjustment, every response had been anticipated. Humanity had studied the galaxy for generations. They had prepared for this moment long before the declaration of conflict. Their calm was not ignorance. Their patience was not passivity. It was mastery. In public, humans continued to behave normally. Life on Earth and on the colonies proceeded as usual. People met friends, shared meals, worked, learned, and explored. News outlets covered the unusual movement of alien fleets with curiosity and careful reporting, but there was no panic. Citizens trusted their leaders because the leaders themselves did not panic. Confidence was contagious, and it spread through the population. Even scientists and strategists remained calm, although their work was critical. Analysts studied alien fleet movements, calculated response times, and refined strategies constantly. Engineers ensured that stations and ships were fully functional. Strategists coordinated quietly across systems. Every action was deliberate, precise, and efficient, but the outward appearance was simple normalcy. The alien coalition was watching closely. Some leaders began to doubt their assumptions. They had expected humans to be vulnerable, to show fear or confusion. They had not expected readiness disguised as calm. Anxiety spread quietly among the coalition. Some factions began to question whether their declaration of conflict had been a mistake. Others debated whether to retreat or continue testing humanity's patience. At this point, humans had not fired a single shot, launched a single missile, or revealed the full extent of their capabilities. Yet the coalition's confidence faltered. The galaxy had long assumed that humanity was peaceful because it could not fight. Now, they realized that humanity's peace had been deliberate, that it had been built on understanding, preparation, and the quiet mastery of patience. On one distant human colony, a young analyst observed the movements of an alien fleet and noted the precise coordination among multiple ships. She reported her findings calmly. Her supervisor nodded, making minor adjustments to human sensor arrays. The exchange was simple, practical, and unhurried. The humans were not reacting emotionally. They were observing, learning, and preparing to act if necessary. Back on Earth, the leaders reflected on the history that had brought them here. 3,000 years of peace had not come easily. Humanity had learned the importance of calm decision-making, the value of preparation, and the strength of patient observation. Now, centuries of careful planning were revealing their importance. Humans did not need to strike first, because the coalition would soon realize that patience itself was a kind of power. At night, across cities and colonies, People went about their lives with a quiet awareness. Children slept peacefully. Workers rested after long shifts. Families shared quiet conversations. Humanity's society did not collapse under the pressure of distant threats. It adapted with ease. The calm was not passive. It was active, deliberate, and thoughtful. It reflected a species confident in its own understanding of time, strategy, and the consequences of action. The coalition continued to send messages, requesting explanations, testing human reactions, and probing defenses. Each time, humans responded with clarity, calmness, and subtle hints of readiness. They did not threaten. They did not attack. They simply showed that they were not afraid, that they had considered every possibility, and that they could respond if necessary. Slowly, the alien fleets began to realize the truth. Humanity had never been vulnerable. Humanity had never relied solely on diplomacy or luck. Humanity had spent centuries learning, planning, and quietly building strength. Their calmness was not weakness, it was mastery. And in that moment, the galaxy began to understand something important. The humans who had smiled quietly when the peace treaty ended were not smiling because they were unprepared. They were smiling because they had been ready for this exact moment all along. Their patience, their observation, and their understanding of time gave them a power that few other civilizations could match. The coalition's leaders started to hesitate. They wondered if their declaration of conflict had been premature. They questioned whether they truly understood the species they had underestimated for so long. And as hesitation grew, the humans continued to operate with steady confidence. Every action, every message, every adjustment was deliberate, measured, and precise. No one had attacked, no one had fired a shot, yet the balance of power had shifted. The galaxy was beginning to see that conflict was no longer a simple choice. Humanity's calm patience, built over 3,000 years, had created a quiet but undeniable strength. And as the alien coalition paused, reconsidered, and observed, humanity remained ready. They had spent centuries learning how to respond wisely. They had spent centuries building systems, training people, and preparing for a moment like this. And now that moment had arrived. The galaxy had made its choice to challenge humanity. But humanity's choice was even stronger. They would not react with panic. They would not react with fear. And they would not act recklessly. They would act with patience, clarity, and readiness, showing the galaxy that peace was not weakness, and preparation was a silent power that no one could ignore. The first real test was coming, and the coalition would soon see what centuries of careful preparation, patient observation, and quiet mastery could accomplish. Humanity did not need to act first. The galaxy would learn slowly and clear. Quiet, tense calm that stretched across the galaxy. For the first time in thousands of years, people were waiting not in panic, not in fear, but with a quiet awareness that something big was about to happen. Humanity had long prepared for this moment, and now, as alien fleets moved closer, it was clear that patience and preparation would meet reality. On Earth, the sky looked normal. Sunlight fell on cities, streets were alive with movement, and people went about their daily routines. Markets were open, children played in parks, and trains carried commuters to work. Nothing about the surface suggested that the galaxy had just declared conflict. To outsiders, humanity looked calm, almost too calm. Inside strategic centers, humans were quietly active. Analysts observed alien fleet movements with precision. Engineers checked stations and ships. Communication channels buzzed with information that had been collected over centuries. But the calm of humans never wavered. It was not ignorance. It was clarity, the kind of clarity that comes only when preparation meets patience. For centuries, humans had studied every species, every tactic, every strategy. They had watched alliances form and dissolve, Conflicts ignite and die out. Humanity understood that the galaxy often rushed into decisions without full knowledge. They had learned to wait, to observe, and to act only when necessary. That wisdom was now their greatest strength. Across the galaxy, alien leaders debated what to do. Some suggested they proceed cautiously. Others argued that humans were bluffing and must be tested. Their fleets adjusted positions, scanning for weaknesses, attempting to provoke a reaction. But humans gave none. Every movement, every adjustment, every message was calm, precise, and purposeful. The coalition had expected fear, confusion, or negotiation from humans. They had expected panic or defensive measures. Instead, they found quiet confidence. Every outward gesture, every word, every signal suggested that humans were ready, but not desperate. They were not desperate because they had been ready for centuries. A message was sent from Earth to the coalition, carefully phrased, yet impossible to ignore. It read simply, "We did not want conflict. We have prepared to maintain peace, but we will respond if challenged. Understand this, our patience is not weakness." Across alien worlds, the reaction was immediate. Advisors paused. Strategists reconsidered plans. Fleet commanders adjusted tactics. Every faction began to sense that they had underestimated humans for too long. The species they believed peaceful and compliant was, in fact, measured, prepared, and far more capable than anyone had imagined. Meanwhile, humans on distant colonies monitored the approaching fleets. Observers noted the precision in movements, the coordination in formations. But there was no panic. Citizens went about routines, engaged in discussions, studied, explored, and trained. Life did not stop because humanity understood that preparation was not about fear. It was about readiness. The coalition's fleets drew closer. Scouts attempted to probe human defenses, but each test was met with subtle obstacles that humans had built into their systems. Sensors, shields, communication reroutes, all were designed to allow humans to observe without revealing full capabilities. Nothing looked threatening at first glance, but everything was meticulously arranged. Alien leaders grew increasingly uneasy. They had believed that 3,000 years of peace meant weakness. Now they realized that peace had been a choice, a deliberate strategy rooted in understanding and patience. Humans had trained themselves for centuries, not to attack, but to be ready. That readiness alone shifted the balance of power. Back on Earth, citizens gathered to watch updates. Screens across cities displayed information about fleet movements, communication signals, and expert analysis. Despite the tension, there was no panic. People trusted the calm authority of their leaders and the centuries of preparation that lay behind every decision. Communities shared support, families discussed quietly, and ordinary conversations reflected confidence rather than fear. The coalition debated internally. Some argued that further provocation was necessary. Others suggested withdrawing and reassessing. The tension was subtle but palpable, a quiet uncertainty that humanity had anticipated. The alien factions could sense control and mastery, but they could not understand it fully. At this moment, humanity made its intentions clear, not through weapons, not through strikes, not through threats, but through presence. Every ship in position, every station operational, every communication network active showed that humans could act if necessary. It was the ultimate demonstration of restraint, readiness without aggression. Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Civilizations that had always admired humanity's peace were surprised to see how carefully prepared humans had become. They realized that humans were not peaceful because they lacked power, but because they had learned control and patience. That quiet mastery was stronger than any fleet or weapon. Humans had spent centuries observing, learning, and preparing. They had studied tactics, technology, diplomacy, and the subtle rhythms of the galaxy. Every adjustment they made now reflected that long-term understanding. No mistake would go unnoticed. No movement would be ignored. Their calm was deliberate, their patience precise, and their readiness undeniable. Even as alien fleets approached, humanity did not act rashly. They did not fire the first shot. They did not retaliate without reason. Instead, they waited, observed, and sent careful messages reinforcing their preference for peace. Yet the underlying message was clear. Humans were ready to respond to any challenge. On one of the outer colonies, a young analyst noticed a minor adjustment in fleet formation and reported it immediately. Her supervisor calmly adjusted sensor arrays and updated the command system. No one panicked. No one overreacted. The systems were designed for this. Humans had trained for this, and every movement was anticipated. Back on Earth, leaders met to review reports. Their discussions were calm and deliberate. Each decision was made after careful consideration. Every response measured to ensure clarity and precision. They knew that unnecessary action could escalate tension, so they focused on observation, analysis, and controlled communication. Across human colonies, civilians watched the skies, the communications, and the news. They felt the tension, but also the confidence radiating from their leaders. Humanity had faced challenges before, not of this scale, but in ways that required patience and intelligence. And now, centuries of preparation showed its value. Alien leaders began to realize that their declaration of conflict might have been a mistake. They saw that humans had never been weak, that peace had not been a lack of power, and that the species they had underestimated for millennia had mastered both patience and readiness. That revelation caused hesitation in the coalition. Their fleets slowed, their communications paused, and uncertainty spread in that moment. The galaxy began to understand something crucial. Humanity's strength was not measured in weapons or aggression, but in the mastery of preparation, observation, and restraint. The 3,000-year peace had not made humans weak. It had given them control, focus, and the ability to act wisely when necessary. As humans watched and waited, the first real test approached, not through attack, but through recognition. The alien fleets, once confident, now paused to reconsider. Messages were sent, meetings convened, and strategies reviewed. Humanity remained calm, steady, and ready. Their patience had shifted the balance. Finally, a message from Earth reached the coalition. We did not seek conflict. We have prepared to maintain peace, but we are ready to respond if necessary. Our patience is not weakness, and our readiness is not a threat unless provoked. The words were simple, yet their meaning resonated across the galaxy. They communicated restraint, control, and preparedness, a combination far more powerful than any sudden strike could achieve. Alien leaders paused, realizing that they had underestimated the humans they believed to be calm and compliant. The galaxy learned something new that day. Peace and patience are powerful. Preparation and observation can outweigh aggression. Humanity's 3,000-year calm had not been accidental. It had been a deliberate mastery of restraint, patience, and quiet readiness. On Earth, life continued. Children played, adults worked, and families shared conversations. People trusted their leaders, trusted their training, and trusted their preparation. The moment of tension passed, not with explosions, but with understanding. The galaxy would remember the calm and patient humans, who had shown that mastery of time and preparation was stronger than fear, aggression, or misjudgment. And humanity continued, quietly ready, patiently waiting, proving that strength often comes not from acting first, but from knowing when and how to act. The peace had faced its first real test, and humanity had shown the galaxy that patience was the most formidable power of all.